only to the fiction that I write, but also to why I write it. In my last video, I spoke about the fact that 10 years ago, I started to write fiction because I became aware that sharing spiritual ideas in story might be a more powerful way to communicate the truth. I'm better known for writing nonfiction works of mystical philosophy and as a teacher of meditation, but I've written 6 novels published so far, and I'm finishing a 7th. And I thought it was time for me to share with you what it is that I write about and why. So the first thing I want to say is that one of my main reasons for writing fiction is so that I could dramatize the spiritual path. The spiritual path, the stages that we tend to go through from our initial stirrings of initiation to however far we get on the path of awakening, there are certain stages that are well known, documented in spiritual traditions throughout the ages. And any of us who studies these things, and especially if we are a practitioner ourselves, we experience these stages. And it's one thing to have someone explain to you what the stages are, but I think it's very different and much more beneficial for you to read stories that illustrate what it's like to go through that stage. And so today I want to speak about the stage of initiation. Every spiritual journey begins with an initiation. Something needs to get you on the path. Something needs to spur you on that odyssey. And often it's a rupture in reality. It's the experience of something that shouldn't be possible. Have you ever experienced something that shouldn't be possible? Have you seen a UFO, for instance? Or have you known something you shouldn't be able to know? Or heard something and not known where you heard it from? Anything. They don't have to be dramatic, but sometimes they are. But they are little moments when you experience something that you cannot deny, but also shouldn't be possible. Those moments are potential openings to a spiritual journey. Why? Because they are potential openings to an inquiry, to a questioning of what is real. And that's the heart of the spiritual journey. It's a question of what is real. So in my books, often the main characters experience some kind of rupture in reality, and that's what initiates them on the path. So I'm going to share one. This is from my book, Transdimensional Crossing, and this is the main character, Jack. And this is how he experienced his awakening. He was on his way to work. He was an engineer. In the story, he's an engineer. He's driving to work when suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a reflection of the sun on my windshield. I looked out and saw our beautiful round yellow star resting above me in a bright blue sky. I looked back down at the highway stretching out ahead of me, but the highway was gone now. I wasn't even in a car anymore. The steering wheel was no longer in my hands. Instead, I was holding a can of Coca-Cola and a half-eaten chocolate bar. I quickly realized that I was no longer driving to or from work. I was walking down the street I had lived on as a child. I could see the bay over the horizon, and I recognized the houses of my neighbors. I couldn't have been more than 12 years old. As far as I can piece together, I only experienced a split second of utter surprise before I was completely absorbed in my 12-year-old self. The shocked 29-year-old research engineer only lasted an instant in that sudden transition before the consciousness of my 12-year-old self was all that was left. Of course, even a single instant of dual temporal citizenship changes everything. I might simply have thought it was a memory, except for that split second when I inhabited both times at once. That split second, and my memory of it, meant that I couldn't neatly place this little time blip in the "that's a memory" file. I had been transported in time, and I knew it. This is the kind of experience that could happen to anyone. I know it could happen to anyone because this particular experience actually happened to me. When I was 29 years old, I had exactly this experience, and I was a 29-year-old research engineer at the time. And this experience could be dismissed as just a sort of little mental blip, a little memory that crossed into your present moment consciousness. Or it could be the start of a questioning that leads to a much bigger spiritual adventure. In this novel, that's what happens to Jack. And that's what happened to me. Now, sometimes my characters in novels, they don't have one crack, one opening. They have many or multiple. And sometimes they have them not alone, but with someone else. This happens in a number of my novels, and I'm going to read two of those for you because these are important moments on the path. These are moments when you discover solidarity with someone else. When your lone spiritual adventure, which can be very lonely, suddenly becomes a shared adventure with a like-minded other. So in this case, this is the story of Toby and Sandy. Sandy has already learned by this point in the story that she is telepathic. She reads other people's minds. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not useful. She kind of has a lot of hard time with it, but it's just the fact. One day, this happens. Toby had been having a bad day, and she was thinking obsessively about something. All of those thoughts were crowding Sandy's mind and exhausting her. I wish she'd just shut up, Sandy thought to herself. I'm sorry, her mind answered. Except it wasn't her mind that had answered. It was Toby's. Hey, who thought that? Sandy thought, and she looked around the room to see a woman with wild black hair looking straight at her. For a moment, the two of them just stared at each other. You can hear what I think, Sandy heard in her mind. Yes, I can, she answered silently. Then she added, Hold up your right hand, showing 3 fingers. Without uttering a word, Toby raised her right hand and held up 3 fingers. Tears burst in Sandy's eyes. You hear me, you hear me, you hear me, she thought. Let's go somewhere else, Toby thought in return. Yes, definitely, Sandy answered. But of course, if anyone in the room had noticed the exchange, they would have just seen 2 women look at each other. Then one held up her hand with 3 fingers pointing toward the ceiling. Then they simultaneously walked out the door without saying a word to each other. So, at that point in the story, Toby and Sandy become profound friends. They have a secret that no one else knows, which is that they communicate telepathically. And they are looking for others. They begin to suspect if there's 2, there must be more. Now, in a different of my novels, this one's called I, Cosmos, there's another scene where 2 characters interact. In this one, the main character, Brian, already has a secret. He's already aware of his, what he calls his celestial self. But he's the only one that can see it. Until, of course, one day, she stood up and walked in front of me again. She paced back and forth twice more, then stopped right in front of me and spoke for the first time. What's that? She said. Her voice was lovely, soft and high-pitched. I don't think I noticed at the time, but thinking back on it, her voice was eerily like the little girl with the shovel. Something about the way she pronounced her words told me she was educated. What? I said. That, she said, gesturing with a nod of her head behind me. That 100-foot-high cosmic man behind you. What's that? Oh my God, you can see that? Yes, I can see it. That's why I asked. What is it? What is it? That's my celestial self. It's been right there behind me for 3 years. It's there when I wake up in the morning. It's there when I fall asleep at night. And it follows me everywhere I go all day long. It's been there for 3 years. But no one else has ever seen it except you. You're the first person who has ever mentioned it. That is my secret, by the way. The one I mentioned earlier. I knew who I was. I knew my celestial self. And this homeless woman was the first person besides me to ever see it. Once again, Brian, the main character, and Destiny, the homeless woman who can see his celestial self, become inseparable friends. And that starts a lifelong adventure of spiritual odyssey, discovery, and awakening. And that's often how it happens. We have an experience, a rupture in reality that initiates us on the path. And that initiation means we start to question reality. We start to question what's true, what we've been taught. And that leads us to seek others who are questioning in the same way. And if we're lucky, we find others. And then we can be on that adventure together. And it's much better to explore spiritually together than to be all on your own. And so one of the reasons I write fiction is so that you, the reader, know you're not alone. And maybe through these stories, you'll find others. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. And I have a question for you. Have you ever experienced a rupture in reality? Did it make you question what's true? Did it initiate a spiritual quest? Have you found others to share the journey with? I hope that you have. And again, thank you very much for watching.